Think about it like Shark Tank or Britain's Got Talent, but for AI scientists, which means we will receive all these ideas where the frontier is. We have a jury, teams can pitch in June, and then we run a 125 million SPRIND challenge. This means from July 1st, 10 teams will each get 3 million euro as part of this challenge to build.
Thank you for listening to SPRIND, the podcast of the Federal Agency for Breakthrough Innovation of Germany. Today, we're going to have an episode in English because the topic we are talking about, has definitely a very international audience, or should have one. We are talking about the new AI initiative that SPRIND is organizing, sponsoring, called Frontier AI. With me today, actually at Europe's a conference in Copenhagen, are Mirko Holzer and Dr. Johannes Otterbach, the two masterminds at SPRIND behind that initiative. Thank you for being here. And Mirko, just kick it right off. What's that initiative?
Thank you for having us, Thomas. Next Frontier AI is one of Europe's most ambitious initiatives because we are talking about incubating frontier AI labs in Europe. And this is a huge endeavor. You could even call it a moonshot, but it's something that's absolutely necessary right now.
Why is it necessary?
Europe at this moment is not having a lot of frontier AI labs. Most labs are in the US and in China. And while China and the US are great partners of us, it's always great to play on a level playing field with everybody, which means it's better to not just import these capabilities and use them to be a user of the capabilities. It's always great to be a creator, a participant at this whole movement. And this is why it's so important. So we're not talking about competing or out-competing. We are talking about being a relevant player in the world.
Johannes, for those of us who are not AI scientists, AI researchers, like you've been one and still are, what's a frontier lab?
Yeah, first of all, thanks, Thomas, for having us. What is a frontier lab? Frontier labs is a term that was coined in Silicon Valley, mostly about companies that are following commercial principles, but really integrate research and deployment, meaning like they really are focused on bringing state-of-the-art AI, developing it quickly and bringing it right back to the customer and figuring out like what is it that they're actually solving for the customer. So it's really like this complete picture, holistic picture of quick iteration from research into deployment, into actually helping solve real world use cases.
Give us some examples. What are, the most interesting frontier AI labs in the world?
The one that is most often talked about is obviously OpenAI. Here it's really about like figuring out how can we use this new concept of large language models, chatbots, to solve real-world use cases. The adoption is, of course, very hard, especially for businesses. But if you look into the consumer space, how chatbots have actually changed the way that we are writing documents, how we are doing our creative engines, how we are trying to get a more human connection, that like they actually try to tackle real-world needs. Whether or not they're not necessarily commercially viable yet, that's to be determined. But they're definitely filling a gap where people start to see we can do things that we couldn't do before.
Why do we have so few of them in Europe right now? And how does this initiative wants to solve it?
Yeah, it has to do with risk-taking and the overall mentality. So in the US, if you just look at OpenAI, it took them nearly 15 years to be there where they are today. And they ran a ton of experiments. They were not sure where this frontier is, and they reached a certain level right now. And the biggest challenge we had in Europe so far is company building and the financing of these kind of companies, because we are talking about very early deep tech endeavors where it's not really sure if a certain experiment will actually work out. And this is where the next frontier lab AI initiative that we are currently running comes into play, because this is a long-term thingy. We are talking about 5 to 7 years, which doesn't mean we need to wait 5 to 7 years for results, but we need to admit that we are a bit behind the US at this moment. So we need to take our time.
A bit behind, that's putting it mildly, I guess. Johannes, where is Europe right now?
Wow, that's a hard question to answer. I think there's a debate going on, like what do you measure as like behind, right? We have companies in Europe that do similar things what the US and China is doing, just not on the same playing level. We are definitely leading in terms of like adopting AI, we're applying AI, but we're not in the game of like really developing AI for the market. We have tremendous amount of research here at Europe, so you can see this. It's a very, very lively community. We are really strong at that. We are very good at like big corporates adopting AI. That's also like where we are really shining. But somehow this connection between the research and really the application, that is missing. Like the gap of like really developing fundamental breakthrough AI systems and really bringing them into the market to help the European businesses and helping the European society. That's where we are lacking. And here, this is a whole ecosystem problem, and our initiative with the shining North Star of €1 billion for the labs in the end, that's really a promise to the AI community here. Like we really want to push the whole ecosystem forward. We're building this around those labs, those teams, and really say like, this is our promise to the AI ecosystem. We bring Europe forward, and I think there will be a lot of momentum behind that, and we hope to galvanize a lot of people around this.
Okay, so Johannes put the big number on the map. Tell us more about the numbers, Mirko. I think it doesn't start with $1 billion, and it doesn't end with $1 billion, actually. But how does the challenge type of initiative you're now sort of organizing, how does it start? Who should apply? To what extent can teams get funding? Just give us the details,
Yeah, absolutely.
Please.
So since we are talking about the frontier, let me start a little bit earlier, because before we fund, we need to learn where would the European innovators, the greatest AI scientists, see the current frontier. Which means we have an application phase open right now, which runs until May 31st, 26, where this is the call to the community. Please come to us. Go to www.next-frontier.ai, read and bring your ideas about the next frontier. That's step 0 before even any money flows, because we need to learn more. Where would the European team see the frontier? Then we have a great jury with the top European scientists who can have an intuition where this frontier actually sits. And I'm sure Johannes has some thoughts about it. But then in the mid of June, there will be a phase where teams can pitch. And we at SPRIND call this a so-called challenge. And people who never heard about that, and I'm sure there are some people who do not know what this is, think about it like Shark Tank or Britain's Got Talent, but for AI scientists, which means we will receive all these ideas where the frontier is. We have a jury, teams can pitch in June. And then we run a 125 million SPRIND challenge. This means from July 1st, 10 teams will each get €3 million as part of this challenge to build. They have 7 months to prove their hypothesis, to do experiments, to run experiments that also fail, to pivot, to do whatever necessary to push this frontier, or to approach the frontier in a small way. And then
First, that's completely free money, no strings attached. You can do whatever. You can do whatever you can do whatever you want with it, right?
Exactly. So this is the great
nice.
thing.
Can
SPRIND,
I apply?
you can
Well,
come
not
up
really.
with a frontier idea. You know, the great thing about SPRIND challenges is there is zero bureaucracy and no strings attached. It's a grant. It's money that the teams can use, because, you know, if you think about frontier, some need more compute, some will need several data modalities, and some need more people. So we are not telling them you need to spend this and that amount for compute or for people. We just say, hey guys, €3 million, 7 months, go for it. After 7 months, we will, and this sounds harsh, kick out 4 of these teams. But even the teams who are kicked out, air quotes, these are great teams. They might build a startup and do great things, but the remaining teams will get €8 million per team. 8 million. And they have another 8 months to build, to experiment, to move forward. And after this time, we kick out 3 more teams, 3 teams remaining. And over a period of 9 months, they will receive 15.5 million euro. Now, if you add this up, this is a lot of money. It's free money, and it gives the room to maneuver and to experiment.
Okay, so for these first 3 phases, it's more than 100 million, right?
125 million. And this phase starts July 1st, 2026. We accept applications until 31st of May next year. And just if you look at this period, application end May, jury mid of June, and 15 days later, the money's on the bank account. So this is unheard of if you compare this to any other funding system. And we catch 2 birds with 1 stone here. On the one hand, we are really putting money into the ecosystem, and the ecosystem will profit just from the fact that we are doing that. And second, this Shark Tank, Britain's Got Talent-ish challenge style funnels the best of the best of the best teams. And we are expecting that 3 teams will remain. And these winners will be ready for the 1 billion founding round. Per team, by the way, per team.
So it's 3 billion in the end, plus 125. I mean, that's something unseen, I guess, in Europe. I mean,
there's one super important thing. We are not expecting that after this 125 million challenge, that we will have already a frontier lab. We will not. If you compare the amounts of money that are necessary in this industry, what we can expect is a great team which is ready to scale, which has a proven or kind of proven frontier vision, and is ready to actually digest $1 billion.
Interesting. I mean, you, Johannes, I think worked for OpenAI and so forth. I mean, obviously these numbers sound very big and very small at the same time. So what would we realistically expect to coming out of for the first 3 phases and then they build up with $1 billion?
I mean, what do we realistically expect, right? Like, in order to scale to such amount of money that you can actually deploy it in a reasonable way, you have 2 years of lead time, right? So you need builders, you need engineers, you need researchers, you need people with big ideas, great vision, something that we typically don't have in Europe. Like, we typically tend to go for smaller amounts of projects because that's what we're used to. So we really look for people that can take off their blinders and really think really big. And the first 24 months are the preparation phase. We want them to learn and study the problems that they set themselves and figure out how can we actually scale this problem to deploy that reasonable amount of money. So the outcome will be something that we cannot predict at this point, but it will move the needle because we will learn something in this process. We will identify what are new frontiers. There are so many problems that we are having out there. We have, you can take any kind of sector in the European Union. We are a very strong to-be economy. We have problems in every single sector. We have challenges in every single sector. So we can push the frontier in many, many different directions. So what we can expect that we get out of this is, number 1, great teams that are ready to scale. Number 2, we have identified really the key elements in our challenges where it's worthwhile pushing and really pushing hard. So that also informs policy stakeholders, it informs governments, it informs think tanks, and it informs corporates. And we have, on the third part, created a massive ecosystem around these teams that are ready to support this ecosystem and bring this whole thing forward. Right? If you think about this amount of money at stake, there will be, of course, effects outside of just like funding a startup. And that's what we're looking for. So we can expect massive movements in the market. And that's why I'm calling it a promise to the economy and to our AI system in Europe, because that's what we're going to be learning. I cannot tell you like what is the next frontier, because that's why we're here at Europe right now sourcing those teams, because those teams really know what is the technological front. And they know also the business problems. Those are the people that need to build it.
So I want to add one thing here. Here in Copenhagen at Europe's, we had great conversations with AI scientists, and they exactly asked this question that Johannes started to answer about where is the frontier? And a lot of people in the community are aware of this S-curve phenomenon, where you have multiple overlapping S-curves, and we are currently on the first S-curve of AI. Transformer models, diffusion models, these are the big workhorses of today's AI revolution.
S-curve understood as an innovation cycle, right?
Innovation cycle, exactly. Thank you. So this is a metaphor that a lot of people in this community are aware of. So it's an innovation cycle, let's say 15 years. And we are currently, it feels nearly exponential. But here and there, you're already feeling that this exponentiality is coming to a certain end.
Well, it's obvious. I mean, the big tech is throwing more and more money on the same techniques in order to get even smaller returns and progress, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Technical progress and also financial progress.
Yeah, this is the interesting thing at this S-curve. At the beginning, you can add linear time and get exponential progress, or a linear energy and get exponential progress. Energy as in what are you putting in compute data, everything, money. But then, currently, it seems to flip into the other direction, the unfair part of the S-curve, where you need to put exponential energy, time, money into it to get linear progress. And and this is how I would describe it to everybody who is crazy enough to think about a leapfrog, a really new approach to AI, is what could this next S-curve be? And this is what Next Frontier AI is all about.
I mean, we always use you've always used the term frontier, and obviously that's an inspiring term. Obviously, that's a term that has a lot of historic connotations as well. I know the frontier, European settlers sort of discovering the American continent, or space being the next frontier. And Johannes, I completely understood, and makes total sense that to say we don't know what the next frontier is, but could you give us a better sense of what a frontier in general terms means in AI?
Yeah, for sure. The endeavor of AI is just figuring out how we can augment ourselves as humans. How can we do the things that we are doing on a daily basis? How can we either have a computer or an artificial intelligence system do whatever we do, or you do it even better? In terms of LLMs, we found a way to augment our creativity to a certain extent. We can automate certain types of laborious tasks that we don't want to do and can free up our time. The key here is that we used to have systems that were very, very niche and could do one single task. The frontier in this case was discovered that we can use one single model to do a ton of tasks, hundreds, thousands of tasks, and automate them with a single model. And that's kind of the frontier that we're talking about, like one system that changes the way that we do work. And the same way, new frontiers could be discovered in different economic sectors where you revolutionize the way that we work in this individual sector. Just think about an AI that can, for example, completely automate the discovery of new drug development. That is a frontier that we are exploring, and we have already like the first iterations of that with big tech companies exploring this space. But like there are so many more of these problems that we can figure out, and that's kind of like the way that we are thinking about frontiers. Like change the way that we do the work instead of like automating the process that we do. Think about the inputs and think about what you want to have the outcome, and then really push this in a direction where you completely revolutionize the way that we do the labor.
And we deliberately do not mention where our current thoughts are about the frontier, because we really want all these crazy people who tell us, hey, I will reach a new frontier with this combination even of hard and software. I mean, this is really hard then, but just that you're aware of how big we are thinking. You can go with new algorithms, new training paradigms, new data modalities, everything. And it's not on us to tell you, it's more on you to tell us.
An important note on that as well is that the frontier that we have seen so far was essentially scaling big language models. Scaling is one of these frontiers. Make it bigger, bigger, and ever bigger. That doesn't need to be the frontier. We can also think in terms of a completely different paradigm that we also see emerging right now with a lot of agents, a lot of very, very small models, but intelligently put them together. So the scale is not in the model itself. It's in the number of agents and small bespoke models and customized models that then are being scalable. So it's really the creativity of the people applying to think about like what is the next stage? What is beyond the current AI paradigm and how do we revolutionize that? That's what we are talking about scale.
And this brings me also to this more philosophical notion about AI, artificial intelligence. I mean, we humans are obviously, or even think we are intelligent, and our brain runs on 20 watts. And now look what we are currently investing. If I don't have the exact number by heart, but if you have one request to something like ChatGPT, I think a nuclear power plant starts spinning up, right? And this is
not in Germany.
Yeah, of course. But this is something where we think, hey, if you think about new frontiers, could we have one order of magnitude less energy? Or one order of magnitude less data that is necessary. You know, if you look at a human baby, you would not spoon feed her the whole internet plus all libraries and everything humans have ever written. Sometimes one or two examples are more than enough. So when we think about this new frontier, let's be creative on which dimension, on which axis we can actually really leapfrog to the next S-curve. Not thinking about a small incremental improvement, but really leapfrog to the next part of the S-curve. And this makes this whole thing a moonshot. I mentioned it earlier. High risk and high reward. If you look at the expectation value, it might be a slightly lower probability to really achieve that. But if you achieve it, we are talking about trillions of euros of value that is created for Europe and the world. And therefore, the endeavor is absolutely worth it. And we, the Next Frontier AI initiative, powered by SPRIND, we are the risk takers that say, please go and take this risk. We will fund you.
What can Next Frontier AI mean for European tech sovereignty?
So the key here is that we want to be on a level playing field, right? We know that we are good in research. We are good at importing technology, but we're not building it ourselves. So the major problem is that if you think about what is incorporated in current frontier AI, it's a lot of our corpora, of our knowledge, of our cultural knowledge. And it's being tainted by culture from the US, specifically Silicon Valley, or culture from China. That means that we are outsourcing our values, our influence, the way that we think to tech companies in the US or in China. And that's what, for me, sovereignty stands about. We care about our European values. We can ingrain our own cultural heritage. And we are thinking about how do we want to live AI. The second aspect behind that is the models are built for different markets. Of course, the US market is very similar to European markets in some ways, but in some ways they are not. So that's why we are struggling also to really get the productivity gains from these models. So really thinking about what is AI looking like for Europe? What does it mean for European politicians, for European stakeholders, for European companies? That is the key of sovereignty, like really think about building AI systems in Europe, for Europe, and maybe also for the rest of the world in collaboration with the US, with China. It's about not about competing. It's about like bringing us back to the table of industrial AI and really developing AI at the forefront, not only in academia, which we already are, but also in our industrial ecosystem.
What we hear a lot about here at Europe is that basically, as you've just said, it's not a lack of talent and knowledge. It's neither a lack of data. We might have some problems with data access, but those are solvable. It's about money, which, well, obviously this initiative is making a dent, very obviously, but it's also about compute. So how do you provide compute for the teams?
So what we are trying to do, and I'm explicitly saying trying because this is an experiment, the initiative itself is a very agile organism. So what we are trying to do is to help to source centralized European compute resources and get interesting discounts so that we have even a force multiplier of the money that we are investing here. So this is how we will try to solve for compute. But in the end, if it's necessary, we will also buy compute from wherever from wherever we can source it, because we will not delay the progress of our initiative by a lack of compute. But the idea is to source compute in Europe.
Who will be the first customers of these new frontiers applications?
This is a great question, because European sovereignty is not an economical value in itself. So if you're a company and you're really happily working with the US systems and using their API, why should you switch to a European system? You might be really happy. There are some companies in Europe, it's called the CRITIS infrastructure, where being European, using European systems is a value in itself, and we will target those. By we, I mean the following thing. The initiative is right now at a stage where we are, promoting this and source the teams and make sure that these labs are being incubated. But the thing is, can we maybe even help the labs to find customers? And we see this as in scope of our initiatives. While the labs are building the next frontier solution, we are rallying European customers that are part of this critical infrastructure, but also other customers who say, yeah, why not at least diverging part of our AI budget into European solutions? So we start with companies who have a need, who have really a need, maybe data protection needs, maybe legal needs, and that are currently using foreign systems because they have to. But in general, since the sovereignty is not a value in itself, our ambition is that as soon as we catch this next S-curve, our models will be as competitive as the models from abroad.
Who should apply?
Who should apply? Right now, we're looking for people that can fill this big vision. That's the first thing that you need to have the vision to really go for that North Star. Then, of course, it's a lot of technical people, right? Like we need people who have knowledge in AI, AI research, AI engineering, machine learning operations, data science, data curation. So that's really what the teams are looking like. The initial team should be on the size of 3 to 5 people that have a strong proposal. It could also potentially be a small startup that already exists. And then they apply. And that's the key. We don't care yet about having a full-fledged CEO and a go-to-market team and a sales team. That will come later. It's unclear, as Mirko said, what is the next frontier? What is the next customer? So we don't care about this. It's really about pushing a technological breakthrough and thinking about what is the next leapfrog that is there. So we really want to have technical builders that have the grit and the courage to really fill out that big money. So our ambition is European founders always asked for big funding. Now we give them a big funding, and now it's on them to actually fill those shoes.
So while having conversation here in Europe, I often heard the question, hey, I do have a frontier idea. I don't have a team. What can I do? Can you help me to find a team? And we see it as part of the Next Frontier AI initiative to also act as a team builder, a Tinder for AI scientists, if you will. Sorry for the comparison. So we will, on the one hand, do a pan-European roadshow that starts in February. And on this event, you can also consider them a little bit as matchmaking events. We will do online matchmaking activities, and we are currently thinking about other mechanisms. How can we as an initiative help to form teams, to bring people together? We are pan-European here, and it might be that these teams are, today it's not that difficult to work while you are remote. So this is an important additional factor. So if you are a lonely genius, please do apply. We will help you to find a team.
And then there's built-in something that we often do in our other challenge formats as well, is that principle of co-opetition. So basically people that are part now of this initiative, to some point will have to share knowledge, won't they?
Of course, but I think that there's so much diversity in the problem spaces that I think there's a good competition to have of sharing the insights of technologies without necessarily having to share their approaches into different economies, into the different application areas that they are pushing. So I think that this is going to be good. The other part is also that in these competitions, in my experience, machine learners love competitions. There's a big platform like Kaggle. They really love that.
It's built in your nature.
It's built in our nature, right? Like you go for a benchmark and you really like try to crush it. And what we also see often in these challenges is that teams start to work together, right? Like it could be also potentially beneficial to work together because you see like, oh, you have a piece of the puzzle that I don't have and I have a piece of the puzzle that you don't have, and you start collaborating more closely.
Quite often they even merge, right?
And they even merge, exactly. So that's what we're looking for. I'm personally a big fan of like competition is brings life into the market, and that's how we should also see it. We always bet on the race and not on an individual team. So that's kind of the key here. And in the end, we will have 3 teams that will potentially, hopefully, raise up to €1 billion. But even the teams before, as Mirko said, they are so strong going through our selection process that they will not have any trouble finding other VC money at that point. So I really see only a win-win situation for the teams and for us. And of course, it's a friendly competition.
I like to double click on something that you said earlier, Johannes, when we talked about who should apply. And I just mentioned the lonely genius. I would also like to mention that we are not expecting that Europe's greatest frontier AI scientists are in parallel super experienced entrepreneurs. So it's important to mention that we are totally okay if a team of 3, 5, 7 people applies and none of them has any entrepreneurial experience. The company building part is also part of what we as SPRIND can offer to these teams.
So your initiative in 1 year, in 3 years, in 10 years, where will Next Frontier AI be then?
In 1 year, that's going to be Christmas 2026. We just kicked off or a little bit more than kicked off our first competition phase. The teams, we have 10 teams in the race. They are all rallying for making the cut for the next one. So then the second milestone is already ahead. So we already have like an idea of what the teams identified as potential next frontier. So we can start our job of like coalescing and galvanizing the ecosystem, start changing conversations on multiple different levels in like corporates, on the VC side, on the government side, on the EU regulation side. So we can start shaping the conversation to really find a fertile ground for the startup. So it's really where this whole initiative starts taking shape and start taking form, because we have learned so much more that we don't know yet now. So I'm super excited about that stage. In 3 years from now, we're going to be just past the €1 billion funding phase, right? So now it's like that's the pedal to the metal, as we say it. And
that's when the rubber hits the road.
Exactly. So we're really in that.
Let's find more metaphors now.
Exactly. It's great, right? So we are in the phase of like where we have to really deploy the €1 billion. The €1 billion. We have to think about like what does it mean to deploy €1 billion into the market. In 5 years, the 1 billion is almost used up. So we're already in the funding phase for the next bigger stage. I don't know what that number will be. We know we will not get to the next frontier breakthrough with 1 billion and some squeezed millions. So we need more funding. What that's going to look like, I don't know. But let's get there, because I'm super excited, because something magical will happen at that point.
And the magic will be that thanks to the challenge concept and thanks to the fact that this filters out the best of the best, these will be very, very sensible investments, even for conservative investors. So the billion will be invested, and the following financing will be something that could happen through an IPO or through even more investments. And this will not be a moonshot anymore. It will be a sensible investment, because these companies, we call them labs, but let's face it, these are companies, will be racing on the market, on the global market, with great technology, great models, and therefore be able to move something. What I would also like to add from an expectation management perspective, listeners of this podcast do know that pessimism is a waste of time. This is the motto
I think we've heard that before. Yeah,
maybe. Yeah,
and the opposite as well.
Yeah. So pessimism
is self-reinforcing as well.
Yeah, exactly. And now let's kick in with the realism piece here. As Johannes just mentioned, after having invested a little bit less than 30 million euros, which is what the winners of the challenge will have had before the billion kicks in, you will not be a frontier lab, neither will you have a frontier model, but you will have the potential to create it. And this is also something that I want to, call out to the community. Don't be afraid. Nobody expects that after this first phase, you will be already the giant on this planet with the super huge frontier lab and everything. But you will be one of these super high potential companies that might become it.
Obviously, we are the Federal Agency for Breakthrough Innovation of Germany. Can you just add, for wrapping up slowly, something on the European dimension? Are teams even from outside of Europe, can they apply? Can they sort of match up with Europeans? Where are the boundaries?
So, of course, we're looking for teams that are deeply rooted in Europe and have the value aligned with Europe, right? Like that's the key of it. We talk about Europe and not Germany specifically because the scale of the market, we need Europe to come together on this one, right? As a whole European continent, we have the economic size that is bigger than the US. And so that's what we should leverage on that. And that's why we really foster Europe as a question, because we need to get the whole talent, all of Europe together.
That's one of the reasons why we don't have the frontier labs right now, because we've always been too fragmented. Right?
Exactly. Each nation state itself is too small. So we call upon all builders that are aligned with Europe. That can be anyone that is living in Europe currently to apply. We also call upon people that are outside of Europe to come back to Europe potentially, or move to Europe to build those labs. So we are also looking for people that for expats that are scattered around the world. If this is interesting to you, come back. We will help you establish your residence here and come back. The whole mechanism works in a way that we use that's now a technical term in terms of financing instruments from the European Union. So there are certain boundaries on what we can do. And that's reasonable to be expected. It's European taxpayer money, so we should also do that. There's of course some additional markets that is an extended European Union area. So if you're interested in that, if you're from Norway, from the UK, from Israel, from Switzerland, come talk to us. There are special terms on that, but we can still work with you. So we are really open to everyone. Just come here and work with us, and then we find our way together.
Sounds fantastic. Okay, and evaluation, how does that work? What's the criteria? What are we going to select to move on from step to step, from level to level?
So we will have a high-profile jury. So we are currently looking at people and talking to people who are really visionary researchers, entrepreneurs, in AI that have built companies of that scale that we are talking about, that can help us evaluate those teams. They will evaluate the first 10 teams that come in to the challenge, then will help us down select it. The criteria are really focused around how do teams make progress? As Mirko said before, it's not about having a solution to a problem, but we are tracking the progress on the path towards your vision of building a frontier system. And that's what we have a jury for, to help us evaluate it.
Excellent. Last question. Both of you know it, but I make a different rule today. In general, I always ask, what do you wish for? What kind of breakthrough innovation do you wish for in the year 2050? And I always said it should not have anything to do with your field of expertise. This time I ask you, what kind of AI do you want to see in the year 2050, so 25 years from now?
Benevolent AGI, discovered, built and run in Europe. I do know, Johannes, and you're already smiling here. Johannes and I always have this small little battle about this term AGI because it's so loaded and so hyped. And, I still love it because it's this little bit fluffy, cloudy thingy where you have this super intelligence that is the last invention of humanity, and that if we make sure it's benevolent, will be the next level to human prosperity and kind of help us to solve everything from energy topics to health topics to everything. But as said, this term is a bit, let's say, loaded. Therefore, Johannes, I would love to give you the opportunity to respond or to give your view on that.
Okay, now we have another hour that we can cover. I can chime in as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I love this little skirmish with Mirko, and we are teasing us regularly on that. So if you ever meet us both in person, that's where you can get us talking all the time, like trigger that skirmish. I'm a little bit, I have problems with the term AGI for several reasons. I worked in the Valley for several years. I know how this term is being used to mislead and deceive people. So I have massive problem with that. I'm rather talking about transformative AI. And what I mean by transformative AI, imagine a system where the more than 50% of the value creation in the whole industrial sector is being done by AI. Then we transform that sector. That's what I call transformative AI. That's what I want to see in 2050, that we have like massively big economic systems that are more than 50% of the value creation is done by AI.
I'm very much in your camp, Johannes. Not trusting the Bellevant aspect of Bellevant. Both of you, thank you so much for sharing so much information on this fantastic initiative.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Thomas. It was nice.
Also, thank you very much to you all out there, and special thanks to all builders of Frontier AI who might be interested in applying now. This podcast has, as always, been produced by Max Zörner. Thank you, Max, very much. If you like our podcast, please leave us a rating or a review in our podcast app. In 2 weeks, we'll be back with the next episode. Until then, as always, stay curious